Hello, everyone. She never looked like the others, and she never tried to. Malgosia Bela arrived in fashion like a ghost, pale, poetic, unsettling. A former pianist with haunted eyes and a stare that felt centuries old. She was not just beautiful, she was mythic. At an age when most models retire, she began. And then she came back again and again. Malgosia's story is not about youth or trends. It is about transformation, about vanishing and returning, about the kind of face that never goes out of style because it never tried to fit in. She was called too strange, too mature, too intellectual, which is exactly why she became unforgettable. Malgosia Bela was born in 1977 in Kraków, Poland, a city steeped in art, history, and melancholy. Her childhood was not one of glitter or glamour. It was filled with Chopin, dusty libraries, and the echoes of a post-communist world still finding its voice. She was raised in a household that valued culture and intellect more than fashion or fame. Her mother was a literature teacher, her father, a university professor. Books lined the walls of her home. Music filled the air. And while other girls dreamed of magazines and movie stars, Malgosia was drawn to things that could not be explained: symphonies, philosophy, silence. She trained as a classical pianist, spending hours alone with the piano, learning how to express the inexpressible. Her teachers described her as serious, withdrawn, and frighteningly focused. She barely spoke in class, but always listened, always watched. Malgosia was not a girl people noticed in the traditional sense. She was not the loudest, not the most outgoing, but there was something arresting about her, something you felt before you understood. As a teenager, she felt like a misfit, too tall, too quiet, too inward. Fashion felt foreign, unnecessary. She often wore oversized clothes, no makeup, and kept to herself. Yet even then, strangers would stop and stare. Her cheekbones, her gaze, her pale skin, they all whispered a kind of raw, unpolished power. But she did not see it. Not yet. Poland in the late 80s and early 90s was not an easy place for young women to imagine dreams beyond survival. But Malgosia did not dream of escape. She dreamed of meaning, of beauty, of depth. Even before she knew it, something inside her was already rehearsing for the camera, not the poses, but the stillness, the weight, the mystery. There was no fairy tale beginning, no teenage discovery in a shopping mall, no overnight transformation. Just a quiet girl in Kraków, practicing piano, reading poetry, and unknowingly preparing to haunt the fashion world forever. Malgosia Bela never chased fashion. In fact, she ran from it for years. Her first love was music. She studied piano at the Kraków Academy of Music, fully intending to become a classical pianist. Modeling was not even a consideration until her early 20s, when a friend convinced her to meet with a local photographer. Just one test shoot, just for fun. But that one photo changed everything. The images were otherworldly. Her face, stark, almost severe, leapt off the film like something from a dream. There was a timelessness to her look, a silence, a weight. Agencies noticed immediately. But Malgosia hesitated. She was already enrolled at the University of Warsaw, studying literature. She was bookish, intellectual, deeply private. The idea of becoming a model being looked at, judged, displayed felt unnatural, even uncomfortable. She turned down early offers. It was not until she was 21, far older than most new models, that she agreed to try. Not out of ambition, but curiosity. What could this strange world offer someone like her? Someone who did not want the spotlight. She signed with Model Plus in Poland, and soon after, international doors opened. Within a year, she had walked for Comme des Garçons, appeared in Vogue Italia, and caught the attention of photographers like Steven Meisel and Peter Lindbergh, who did not just photograph her beauty, but understood her soul. Lindbergh, in particular, saw in her something few others did: a story, a stillness. He once said, Malgosia does not pose. She exists in front of the lens. That existence full of tension, mystery, and quiet rebellion became her trademark. But the fashion world was not always ready. She was not commercial. She was not bubbly. She did not flirt with the camera. She confronted it. She gave it truth, not charm. Some designers found her too cold, but the right ones, the bold ones, saw her as a revelation. By the late 90s, Malgosia was on runways in Paris, Milan, and New York, Gucci, Balenciaga, Jill Sander. She was not just modeling clothes, she was changing the atmosphere of the room, the temperature, the energy. But just as her career was exploding, she walked away. No announcement, no drama. She disappeared from fashion almost as quietly as she had arrived. People assumed she had retired or burned out, but the truth was simpler. Malgosia Bela did not belong to fashion. She borrowed it, and soon she would come back to borrow it again. When Malgosia Bela returned to modeling in the early 2000s, something was different. She was no longer the strange new face. She was a presence, and fashion was finally ready for her. Her comeback began quietly: a few editorials, a few runway appearances. But the effect was seismic. In an industry obsessed with youth and trend, here was a woman who had aged gracefully, unapologetically, and returned not as a novelty, but as a force. Photographers lined up. Stylists whispered her name with reverence. She graced the covers of Vogue Paris, Vogue Italia, and Numero, often shot in shadows, in stillness, in frames that looked more like paintings than photographs. Malgosia was not a muse. She was a mood. Designers like Nicolas Ghesquière, Riccardo Tisci, and Raf Simons recognized what made her rare. She could wear the most avant-garde fashion and still look timeless. She could be in full couture or no makeup at all and still command the frame. But it was not just about clothing. It was about control. Malgosia never gave herself fully to the industry. She modeled on her own terms. She turned down campaigns she found uninspired. She said no to brands that wanted to soften her edge. She refused to smile for the sake of likability, and fashion rewarded her for it. She became the face of Balenciaga. She walked for Lanvin. She starred in Givenchy campaigns. Her images, often black and white, stripped down, haunting, stood out in an era saturated with excess. She was often cast as the older model, the intellectual model, the strange beauty labels that others might reject. But Malgosia wore them like armor, and in doing so, she created a new category. Not just beautiful, not just stylish, but agelessly relevant. At the height of her return, she did something few models ever do. She crossed into acting, and just like her modeling, her performances were subtle, cerebral, and unforgettable. From Ono to Europa Europa, she brought the same haunting presence to the screen. But even at her peak, Malgosia never played the game. She kept her life private, she kept her art personal, and she kept the mystery alive. Because for Malgosia Bela, fashion was never about fame. It was about expression. In a world that demands clarity, Malgosia Bela remained an enigma. She never tried to explain herself, and that was her power. From the very beginning, she broke the unspoken rules of the modeling industry. She started late, she left at her peak, she came back older, wiser, and stranger than before. And rather than conform, she carved out her own definition of what it meant to be iconic. She did not sell a lifestyle. She refused to commercialize her femininity. She once said, "I do not believe in looking perfect. I believe in looking real." That truth radiated through her work. She embraced her paleness, her strong features, her unreadable stare. She let herself age in front of the lens, no apologies, no filters. Her rebellion was quiet, but it was constant. She often walked runways in a way that defied spectacle. No forced smiles, no exaggerated struts, just presence deliberate, poetic, unshakable. She moved like a memory, not a model. Photographers loved her for it. Editors built stories around her. And yet, she never chased popularity. She rejected countless brand deals that felt exploitative. She stepped back from press. She refused to give the industry her whole identity. Instead, She focused on creating moments that mattered, haunting visuals, timeless portraits, emotionally raw campaigns. Her refusal to sell out made her rare. Her commitment to authenticity made her unforgettable. Even off the runway, she lived on her own terms. She raised a son, acted in independent films, spoke openly about the absurdity of beauty standards, but never in anger, always with calm defiance. She became a symbol, not of perfection, but of choice. Malgosia Bela proved that a woman in fashion could be intelligent, introverted, complicated, and still succeed. She gave permission to all the others who did not fit, who felt too strange, too quiet, too thoughtful, because she was all those things, and she made them powerful. In the face of an industry that rewards obedience, she offered resistance, not with noise, but with elegance. And in doing so, she redefined what a model could be. Malgosia Bela was never fully present in the industry, and maybe that is why her absences felt so striking. After a second peak in the mid-2000s, she began to disappear again, quietly, without explanation. One season she was everywhere. The next, she was gone. There was no scandal, no headline, just silence. The fashion world whispered, was she done? Was she tired? Was she over it? But for those who had followed her closely, the signs were familiar. Malgosia had always treated fashion like a visitor, not a home. She stepped into it when it made sense, and when it no longer did, she walked away. Motherhood played a part. She gave birth to her son, Joseph, and became deeply focused on his upbringing. In interviews, she spoke about the need for privacy, for balance, for a life that existed outside of the spotlight. She also began turning down more work, not because the offers were not coming, but because she did not need the validation anymore. The girl who once felt invisible in Krakow had learned how to disappear on her own terms. In 2015, she shocked the industry again, appearing in campaigns for Valentino, walking for Comme des Garçons, and starring in Vogue Italia at age 38. No fanfare, no reinvention, just Malgosia, still haunting, still unreadable, still timeless. But these returns were always brief. She would emerge, command attention, then vanish again, as if reminding the industry, I am still here, but I do not belong to you. There were rumors of health issues, of burnout, of deep disillusionment with the industry's obsession with perfection and youth, but Malgosia never confirmed any of it. Instead, she offered glimpses, a rare interview, a striking editorial, an independent film, and then the silence returned. In a world built on visibility, Malgosia's absence became her final statement. She did not fade because she failed. She faded because she refused to perform. And in doing so, she became more than a model. She became a myth. Malgosia Bela never needed the spotlight. She became a legend by stepping in and out of it not to chase relevance, but to preserve truth. Her legacy is not defined by the number of campaigns or the gloss of magazine covers. It is defined by the spaces she left behind, the pauses, the silences, the haunting sense that someone important was missing. To many, she is the model who reappeared when least expected and always felt essential. To others, she is a reminder that beauty can be strange, that strength can be quiet, that rebellion does not always look like noise. She aged without apology. She loved without spectacle. She modeled without surrender. And in an industry that burns out its brightest stars, Malgosia Bela endured not by staying visible, but by staying true. She once said, "The only way to survive fashion is not to let it define you." And she never did. So maybe she was never gone. Maybe she was simply waiting for fashion to grow up, waiting for us to understand that beauty, real beauty, does not beg to be seen. It just is.